we are live. Welcome. Hi, everyone.
Thank
Welcome to the broadcast tonight. I have a special guest with me here today. I'm excited to talk to her and pick her brain and learn about what she does in the industry. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. Alicia, where are you joining us from?
Los Angeles, California.
Nice. How is LA today?
It's okay. I mean, it's better. I feel like it was rough there, but we had good rain, so now the air is not so bad, and we're all here.
Things are kind of cleaning up and getting better.
Yeah, slowly but surely.
Well, I'm glad that you are doing okay through it all, and I'm glad that the smoke is now officially gone. Right, the air has been cleansed, and
I think so.
we'll keep our prayers, of course, for all those who have been affected by the fires there recently. But thank you for joining us tonight. And I know that you actually work in the industry. And can you tell us a little bit about exactly what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So again, I'm Alicia Beekman. I work at DDO Artists Agency, and I am a talent agent. DDO in general has been around since 1969. We are a full service talent agency. That means we represent clients for TV, film, commercial, print, voiceover, and stage. I specifically work in TV, film, and voiceover. And my specialty is working with youth and young adults. I work for DDO Kids, but our agency represents actors of all ages. Do you want me to go into more detail about what agents do, or is that?
No, we'll get into it here. We'll do a deeper dive into what what exactly you do. So you're based in LA. You're working in their LA office. How long have you been working with them?
I've been working at agencies for about 13 years. I've been with DDO for 6.
Okay, so 6
we have
years.
offices in LA, New York, Chicago, and Atlanta.
Nice. So you've been with them 6 years. Have you been specifically in the LA office the whole time?
Yes, but we do work remote. So the LA office.
Right. Well, very nice. So if you're on a beach in Mexico, you're still in the LA office.
Yes, and I know how you like to travel like I do, so you never really know where I am, but I'm working in the LA office.
Got it. Well, as long as the work is getting done, that's all that matters, right?
Absolutely.
Well, very good. So what got you started in the business? I'm kind of curious. So you've been in the business industry working with agencies for 13 years now. What was that path like? Are you originally from Los Angeles?
I'm originally from Northern California, from the Bay Area. And I went to the University of Miami. So I was in Florida for a few years there. And I was always really interested in entertainment. I was a dancer my whole life, never an actor, but definitely grew up dancing, danced all the way through college. And I knew I wasn't going to pursue it professionally, but I was interested in pursuing something in the performing space. And I was always super intrigued by the business side of entertainment. My background, that I studied, was more in the communications PR space. And I moved to LA right after college, thinking maybe like publicity, entertainment, PR, that kind of side of things. But as a 21-year-old, I was applying to all different jobs in entertainment. And the job I got was a receptionist at a talent agency. And, I never really thought about the agent path. I think if you're not from LA or maybe New York, it's just not something you hear so much about. So I didn't really know anything about it, but I started working at my previous agency and fell in love with it really quickly. I'm really lucky to have landed in really good spaces right off the bat. So I was a receptionist for a minute, and then I was an assistant for a couple years, and I ended up starting the voiceover department at that agency. And I was doing youth and adult voiceover for a couple years. And then I took over their youth division on camera. So I was doing everything: theatrical, commercial, voiceover for kids, and then voiceover for adults. And I did that for a few years. And then I went over to DDO, where I was able to focus a little more on just specific things and grow those departments bigger. So ended up in TV, film, and voiceover at DDO.
Very cool. So I love the story. So you were in the Bay Area. What part of the Bay Area? Just curious.
Redwood City.
Redwood City. Okay, very good.
Miami.
I was actually born in Eureka, California. So
Okay, way up there.
yeah, not considered Bay Area, but
Yeah.
but my family, they relocated to the Bay Area as well.
Okay,
So
nice. Where in the Bay?
well, so the Fairfield Backville area is where my grandpa
Okay, so more
lived
inland.
way back when it was all farms. So
Yeah, no, I remember we used to. Redwood City is kind of down by like Palo Alto, if that gives you a little more
Right.
context. But we grew up going to Tahoe, so we'd always drive through Vacaville. That's my Vacaville, the outlets.
That's your experience there.
Yeah,
Yeah, just below the Napa area, basically kind of the gateway into Napa. So yeah, I love that area. So you went to as far away as you possibly could, but still stay in the United States for college. You went all the way to Miami.
I did. I would have left the country if my parents were okay with it, but I did go as far as I could.
From the Bay Area to Florida, you're practically leaving the country anyways, right?
As far as possible. And, it's nice. I love international travel and cultures. That's where my biggest passions lie. And Miami is basically the closest you could get to other cultures while staying in the States. I mean, with all the Latin influence and Cuban specifically influence, it's kind of like another country.
Very good. Well, I love it. So you started off as a receptionist, not really even planning the path to becoming an agent, and it just kind of happened that you obviously worked your way up, through the ranks there, and now here you are today. So specializing. Let's talk about voiceover. I love, all the different. Obviously, there's so many different areas in the entertainment industry, right? Yeah. And so you've been working in the voiceover area for a while. One thing with somebody let's talk to somebody who's maybe tuning in today who would love to get started in voiceover specifically. And what would you recommend that they do today to help them on the path to perhaps maybe meeting you someday?
Sure. Voiceover is it's kind of separate from everything else in a lot of ways. It's a very specific world. And it is both more accessible than on camera because you can do it from anywhere. But that also makes it a lot more competitive because people are doing it from everywhere. The number one thing and the number one answer to that is always going to be training. Having a cool or interesting voice. I mean, yes, that of course can matter, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the training and you don't understand how your voice works. So commercial VO, taking commercial VO classes. If you want to go the animation route as well, there's amazing animation coaches out there. A lot of really big animation actors do private coaching too, which is really cool. And just really learning to understand your voice and how to use it and how different kinds of scripts work and how to control your tone and all of that. That is step one. You need to be really confident in what you're doing before you do anything else. To submit to agencies, if you're an adult, you'll probably need a reel. It's hard because you need a reel, but also reels can be really expensive to get a good reel. And if you don't have a good reel that really represents you with good branding and everything, it hurts more than helps. If you're under 18 to submit to me, I would actually prefer you didn't have a professionally produced demo reel. And you can just have samples. So, work with your VO coaches to lay down a commercial sample and a couple really good animation samples, just like in the form of auditions. And I will throw this out there as well, even though we're talking about voiceover, the same thing goes for on camera. So if you're submitting for on camera TV film representation, instead of, paying to go to one of those fake reel places that'll make a little fake reel for you, work on your craft, work with your acting coach and come up with a couple really good scenes and just film them like self-tapes in a good self-tape setup. And that can be your submission. It doesn't have to be a professional reel. So on the VO end, again, I used to represent adults and I don't anymore for VO. So I don't know. It's possible that you can do that when you're submitting for adult rep as well. But I think having a few reels is really the way to go. Self-submitting. So self-submitting on some of the legitimate casting sites, make sure they're legitimate just for anything that does come up. I'm not going to plug any of the self-submission sites, especially on the VO world, because to be honest, they kind of take away from our job. There are a couple sites where you can, if you don't have representation, sign up and put samples on and audition directly to a client and book some VO work that way and build your resume. I get really frustrated with those. And again, I'm not going to plug them, but also it's a bit of a catch-22 because you want to get work experience, or you need work experience to get an agent, and then but you can't do that if you don't have, so I think just doing as much as you can, student films, whether that's on camera or VO roles, can be a great way to get some experience. But the first thing in any area of entertainment that I will always say is training.
Now, somebody who's specifically looking for voiceover, would you recommend like a voice coach? Even I know that there's probably different voice coaches out there, right? But if I'm in a small town, let's say in the Midwest somewhere, and I'm looking to try to improve my craft, and I like to use my voice, right? I like to do different characters with my voice, and I think, oh, that would be fun. I would love to be a voiceover actor. Would you recommend them maybe looking in their local area for a voice coach? Which I would assume, and of course, I'm not in the Midwest, so I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that there's voice coaches that are in every little area, but I would primarily think that they would focus on singing.
Yeah, vocal coaches are different than voiceover coaches. I will say that if you sing, like being able to sing, at least carry a tune, is definitely an asset, especially in the animation space, because a ton of animated shows involve singing. However, a vocal coach is totally different. The nice thing about 2025 is that you can always work with coaches out of LA or New York. They all Zoom. They all have Zoom classes. You can always do Zoom private coaching. And that barrier is gone. So working with VO coaches and in classes out of LA or New York are probably the ways to go. And there are great commercial classes. There are commercial casting directors, VO commercial casting directors that coach and do classes. And then for animation, there's a ton of stuff out there. There are groups, that meet weekly, that kind of thing, where you can, just work off of each other. There, like I said, is a ton of private coaching, and a lot of really big VO actors, like Bob Bergen, the voice of Porky Pig, he private coaches. Like a lot of these really, really big actors do private coaching, which I think is really beneficial because they really are out there in the nitty gritty, knowing what the auditioning scene is looking like, knowing what they're looking for in the booth. And I think that's pretty cool.
Nice. I love it. And you said that the nice thing about voiceover is you can work from anywhere, right? You can technically work from anywhere. What would that look like? Let's just say somebody, so you're talking even somebody international, like if they needed somebody with an Irish accent, for example, you could potentially find an Irish actor who is sitting at their home in Dublin. And
I mean, I have voiceover clients in the UK and Australia. You just have to have a home studio. And the nice thing about this is that there are different levels of home studios, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a huge investment. In order to pursue VO work, you should invest in a decent microphone. But again, that's, you can get a good microphone for $100 to $200. It doesn't need to be a $3,000 microphone. The most important thing about setting up a space is the space. It is the insulation. You will see a lot of professional VO actors, they work out of their closet. It seems so silly and so janky, but that's where the insulation is. If you have a closet with carpet filled with clothes, that's what's actually going to sound the best. So the bigger thing than investing in all of this fancy stuff is actually the insulation and the space that you're using. But if you're trying to get a little fancier, getting a good interface, you should have a pop filter, which is like $15 on Amazon, that goes in front of your mic and stops the like those sounds, or the like when you do like D's or B's, that echo, it stops that pop. Yeah, and for many things, even just having a decent mic and a really good space can be enough to be considered a home studio. You used to need a couple different connection sources like Source Connect or ISDN. That's getting less and less required, though there are some commercials out there that still do want you to have this this system called Source Connect. But the barrier to entry is really lower than it used to be for that kind of thing.
And then are they recording it directly to their computer, or could they even use a smartphone? Is that not recommended?
I mean, it's definitely not recommended, and definitely not for a job. That being said, for auditions, I do have a couple of clients that have told me that it's been done on their phone, and I don't care how it's done as long as it sounds good. So most of the time with your phone, it's not going to sound good enough. But if you can figure out a way with the insulation and you have a good phone and the connection's good, and sometimes if you're recording through an interface or something, and it can sound good, I don't care what you use, you know?
So the trickiest thing now is to try to find a desk the big size for your closet, right? It's something that will be small enough to fit a desk and a chair in your closet.
Sure, it doesn't need to be a desk. It also, like, a lot of people do invest a little more to create, you know, it's just about insulation. So nothing, you know, you don't want whatever floor you're on to be hardwood, or definitely no tile. You know, never, a bathroom is the absolute worst place to record. A high ceiling is not good. You want to bring the ceiling to you. So if you are in just a small room or something, I would put just build literally a fort, like a comforter, some pillows, bring the ceiling as close to you as possible. There are these little shields that you can put a mic inside. You're just trying to stop that sound. And that's the biggest thing. And you do also need to know some basic audio editing. But to start out, it really is basic. You know, you should know how to go in and clip out a part or change your takes around if you need to, depending on what the audition is. Sometimes taking out your breaths, that kind of thing. If there is something going on with your sound, like being able to do a noise reduction filter. These are just kind of like 101 audio editing things for VO. Doesn't need to be anything crazy, but as you get further along, obviously the better skills you have as an audio editor and engineer, and especially if you are promoting yourself as somebody that has a home studio and you are being able to do that, then they will tell you, the formats that they want their files in, or the DBI that they want it in, and you need to kind of be able to work with all of that as well. But the basics are not as complicated as they sound.
So I'm picturing now getting bunk beds, taking out the bottom bed, putting a desk in there, hanging up a bunch of blankets, put a bunch of clothes in there.
Yeah, I mean, when I have the most, like, I am no audio engineer at all. I have the most basic knowledge of all of this, but whenever a client submitting reads to me, especially a new client, if they're not sounding that great, because again, I work with kids. So you have, like, let's say a 7-year-old that's just started this, like, it's probable that they're not, or their mom is not going to be, parent is not going to know exactly how to do this or have a good setup for VO. So the first thing I always ask is for them to send me a picture of where they're recording. And I'll troubleshoot with them and say, okay, it'll either be like, absolutely not, you've got to change this. Like, because people, they'll just put the mic on the kitchen table, which is hard. For everything is echoey, goes off of the refrigerator. I mean, it's literally just where the sound waves are bouncing off of. Literally, you'll have better sound. Get in your bed and put the comforter over your head and the mic on your bed, and just make sure nothing's hitting the mic. That's honestly going to sound pretty good. So it's just kind of playing with your space like that.
It's funny because there's a guy I used to work with years ago who got a job, with voiceover, and he was doing audiobooks. And
Okay,
he
yeah.
told me once, I saw him one day and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? And he said, oh, great. I just did a 12-hour audiobook session in my closet the other
Yeah,
day, yesterday. And
that's what, yeah, my sister is a professional voiceover actress and she primarily does audiobooks and she does have a whole built out booth, but she's in there for, yeah, 10, 12 hours every day, just locked away in her booth. So obviously, if that's the kind of work you're doing and you're doing it more and more and longer term, and especially with audiobooks, which are going to be a lot longer, that's when you're going to want to build out your space and have it maybe be a little more comfortable than being shoved in the closet. But
right.
yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is I think when a lot of people, they think of voiceover, they instantly think of cartoons, right? They're thinking of the animations and the, cartoons, but there's so much more work out there besides that. Like I know there's a lady who does all the voiceover for the subway system in New York,
Mhm.
all the stops, and she also does the airports. And it was
Oh,
funny.
great.
I was in New York. I picked up, I think, one of the newspapers at the time, and there was an article about her. And I think she's from, kind of northern, like Boston area, or somewhere up there. And so her accent, she was saying how that was the hardest part with
Yeah. You can't have a
this.
Boston accent if you're doing the MTA.
Right. And there's a couple of stops that she mispronounced that all New Yorkers make fun of her for. And I don't even know which stops those are, but she
Interesting.
mispronounces them. But I guess they left it in the recording. So
That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a million different paths among VO. If I'm being completely honest, animation is incredibly competitive. The animation space is so competitive. And it works very differently now than it did 10, 15 years ago, where it's different. It's just as competitive, if not more competitive, but competitive in a different way. It used to be like they just had, they would physically go in to record their auditions. All VO clients, every VO agency had a booth at their agency, and you would physically go into your agent and record every audition that way. And then it was really like more of a tight world to break into because they just reused the same people all the time. Um, Now they are you're much more likely to be able to get heard, but again, the numbers of people they're hearing are way bigger, so it's almost harder to get in, but they are more likely to listen to a random audition from a random person, a person that they don't know, and book them for it. But it's definitely tough, and especially for adults to get into that animation space.
I mean, but everybody has a unique voice, and that's the great thing about it. Every single person in this world has a different voice, and
Absolutely.
there are some people I meet. I think to myself, man, this person should be doing voiceover. I'm
Yeah.
sure we all have met those people. Whether they're your waiter or somebody that's you're meeting in public, and you're thinking, man, that person has a great voice. I love it.
Yeah. And I feel like with animation too, there's a lot more skill involved in the ways of putting on voices, right? And that doesn't apply to really commercial VO at all. That's more about the tone of your voice. And obviously, there are a lot of skills that you need for commercial VO as well, which is why those commercial classes do matter and are super important. But it's like a totally different skill set than being able to put on animated voices and audition and for animation and a lot of times for animation they are reusing your voice. You can do up to 3 characters under the same rate, so I mean they're often trying to find people to do multiple voices. So very different skill set. And then audiobooks, different skill set. Video games, different skill set. There's a lot of different things in there.
Have you ever had a client who had an accent and you said to them, "Hey, I need you to work on this other type of accent," or given them instruction to try
Absolutely.
to work on those things?
Yeah, I mean, I get tons of audition requests for accents, whether that's domestic, different accents in the United States, or different foreign accents, because of authenticity now. That affects how much accents kind of matter, if that makes sense. Like if they need an Indian voice, for example, a South Asian voice, it doesn't matter if you're a white person that can put on a South Asian accent. Like they want to cast that authentically. That being said, you can be an American South Asian person that doesn't speak with a South Asian accent, but you're very good at it. You emulate your parents or whatnot. And that's great. People who naturally don't have American dialect accents that I take on. I mean, I do really recommend working on your American accent if you're pursuing acting in the States. I never like to tell people to like try to change something that makes them who they are. That's something I'm pretty passionate about. So if you have an accent, like that is great. And I do want to encourage you that like to be who you are. But that being said, obviously, if you're auditioning in the States, like that will cut you out from being able to book American roles. So being able to get that American accent down is very helpful. And then obviously being able to go back into your natural accent and that kind of thing. If not, while you're working on your accent, be who you are. You know, there's a place for everybody in this business, but being able to perfect those accents. And then among the states, we have a ton of different accents, right? And knowing those things, having the knowledge of those different dialects within the states, or even, I mean, this goes the same for anywhere. In the UK, obviously, there's a lot of different dialects even within the UK. So if you are pursuing voiceover professionally full time, knowing those differences is important because you should be able to change that when they need, or else you're just not going to book those things, which is fine. But
Right. Going back to the person who's starting out, I know that you said, obviously get some coaching. That's going to be step number one. That's going to be very helpful. Second question I have is when you say a reel, right? Somebody's getting a reel put together. What do you recommend that should look like? Should the reel be a certain amount of length of time? What exactly are the key elements that you're looking for in the reel?
If you're going to do an actual reel, then you need to invest in working with a VO reel producer, because they will do all of those things. If you're not going to do that, or you're not able to do that, then I would keep with separate samples. Because if I hear this is my reel, then what I am expecting is a, fully professionally produced. It's not just a bunch of your auditions put on, with nothing. It usually has the music and the commercials put together. It has the effects of an animation scene, and there's just more to it. But if you say here are some VO samples, and you send me 4 different really good samples, then I'm not expecting that. Not that I'm not expecting it to be professional. Of course, it needs to sound good. It needs to be from like a home setup that sounds good, so that I know that if I'm listening to a potential new client, they know how to record and have it sound good. Same thing in the on-camera space. If you're recording just a couple of scenes at home, I want it to look like a really good self-tape setup, because I need to know that that's how your self-tapes will be. So it's really just about being confident in your skill and being able to lay that down. Again, because I don't ask for my kids to have reels, and I don't want them to make reels, I can't say I'm an expert on what makes a fantastic reel. I mean, it's a bit of a catch-22, because you both want to show your range, but we still need to understand who you are as a voice talent in one thing. So that can be a complicated and almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, that's almost 2 different things that we're asking for, because if everything in your reel is so different, then it's hard to understand where you fit on the roster, just from listening to a reel. But you also need to stay kind of branded with it while still showing range, if that makes sense. And it's a balance.
Yeah, a little bit. So would you suggest maybe 3 clips or 5 clips, or what exactly, should somebody put together?
Well,
Obviously you want more than one, right?
If we're talking about just doing like samples.
Yeah, just sending you a sample of their work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also depends what you're submitting for. Like, if you're submitting to, like, I'll speak for myself, right? I work with kids, and I do a lot of animation and some commercial. There's a lot less kids commercial VO out there because it's just a lot less common that you hear kids doing the voiceover on commercial. That being said, they definitely exist, but I would say that 75% of what I do is animation. But so if someone's submitting to me, I want to hear a commercial script. I want to hear probably at least 2, I would say, animated scripts. If you sing, I would love to hear, you sing in animation format, so sing in character. Nothing too crazy. I mean, especially if you're just cold submitting to me, I'm not going to sit here and listen to 10 different, I'm not going to open 10 different links. If you're submitting and you're primarily submitting for audiobooks for, you're an adult and you're submitting to a certain department, then yeah, I mean, if you don't have a professional reel, then a few different samples is what you want. But to be honest, it's competitive, and it's competitive to get representation, especially in the LA market with VO. So you probably will have to have a professional reel, which means you have to pay to get it produced, and it's an investment.
Right. Now, as far as, let's say, so you're saying like a nice commercial would be good, maybe a couple different monologues, and obviously if they sing, add that to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, for voiceover, it wouldn't be monologues, so it would be like animation scripts, which when you do a voiceover audition in an animation script, you are only reading your own lines. So it's not like on camera when you do a scene and you have a reader. That doesn't happen for voiceover. You're just skipping over the other lines. But it still probably won't read as a monologue unless it happens to be a thick monologue but I would do actual animation. I mean, lay down what you're looking to book, what you think you are the best at and what is strong to you. If you're a teenager, don't do a script that's a parent. Like you'd be surprised about the things that seem like common sense that people don't do. And same with on camera, like make sure you're putting down the kind of thing that you can book. That's what we want to see. Because when you're submitting to agents, you want them to picture exactly where they would fit onto their roster based on what you're sending them.
So know your strengths, basically. Know who you are and which
comes in
niche
training.
you represent.
Yeah, and that comes in training. It really does. Whenever people, I mean, when I do, I try to help a lot of young actors and parents, and I run a Facebook group with like 10,000 child actor parents to kind of demystify this world for people. And that's big. People say, well, do you have a script that they should do? And I'm like, I don't know your child's acting. I mean, they really should work with their acting coach to find a great script that really highlights their strengths. Yeah. Nice.
But obviously too, give direction to your child, right? Because I know that there's some scenes I've seen. I like, for example, I've seen people audition, like a 12-year-old audition with Cruella de Vil. And Cruella de Vil, she's, right, one of the most evil villains out there.
It's
in my
fun,
mind, she's the worst.
Sure. I mean, right. Dogs. I know.
Puppies.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I mean, again, unless you're submitting for community theater, like a 12-year-old is not going to be booking the role of Cruella de Vil. And also I would say like the greenest thing you can do is submit for TV film. Sorry, I'm now on camera, but submit for TV film representation with like a script from animation or a script from like a play. Like I will get clients that are auditioning for on camera for theatrical that will, read a scene from like The Lion King or something. And it's just like that is a disconnect. That's not what you're submitting for. So it's cute, but I can't see what I need from that. And the type of acting that goes into animation, the type of acting that goes into on camera, the type of acting that goes into stage is completely different. So if you're doing a scene from stage, for example, when you're submitting for theatrical rep, theatrical means film and TV, which is confusing. Doesn't mean theater. In LA, it doesn't mean theater. In New York, theatrical does mean theater, but in LA, theatrical means TV and film. It's all very confusing. But if you're submitting in LA for TV film rep, and you do a scene from like a show, and you're doing it because your experience is being on stage, and you're doing it as if you would do it on stage, you could be amazing, but you're not going to get film and TV rep from that. My first thing I will say is, have you been in on-camera classes? Have you done scene study? That, because this is a stage performance, which is great. We also have a stage department. I'll say, are you looking for theater rep? But it's such a different type of acting and performing. And the only way to work through that and understand that is through classes.
Right. I have a question coming in from Sky asking, what microphone brands would you recommend? So if they go out to make a purchase for a nice microphone, are there any specifics that you're looking for?
What I would say is literally Google best microphones for voiceover. Like you will find articles that are written just on that, and that have different price points too. I am not comfortable recommending anything specific, but Google that specifically for voiceover, because that is different than mics that are made for singing or podcasting or anything like that. But there's definitely stuff on the internet from reputable sources that you can find a list of good mics at different price points.
Right. And the difference is, obviously, like tones and pitches and being able to capture the audio versus like a podcast, you want the voice to be directly into the microphone,
right.
Whereas the voiceover mic, you want it to kind
of
capture.
And there are like people that you can work with too. Like, I would work with an audio engineer if you're really trying to set up a good space. Do your own research, try to figure it out. But just to do things like, finagle the little things and what's coming in too hot, and they can help you, do you need to turn the gain down? Like all of those little things. And there are people that like can consult you to just make sure your sound sounds great.
Nice. I have a couple other questions as well. I have somebody who's asking, what makes somebody stand out in your mind with a resume? So if somebody's cold submitting to you and you're reading through their resume, what's the one thing that really kind of jumps out at you as a rep?
Well, the very first thing, I bet you can guess from what I've been saying over and over again on this, is training. So when I look at a resume, the first thing I look at, I jump right down to training. I want to make sure you're trained. I want to make sure you're trained with reputable people, depending on what you're submitting for. If you're pursuing commercials like on camera, I'm not a commercial agent anymore, but when I used to be, the first thing I would look for is improv. Commercials are so much improv. So I would look straight down to make sure you had taken improv classes, ideally at somewhere like Second City or Groundlings, like a legitimate improv studio. For TV film, that you have good, well-rounded on-camera training, things like scene study, and ideally like legitimate places. If you're submitting to me for VO, I want to see that you have VO classes. What commercial VO classes have you taken? What animation classes have you taken, or who have you worked with in animation? That is like by far the first thing I look at, no matter what point in your career you're at. Even when people are submitted to me and they're already credited, I want to know where their training is. If you're an athlete, if you're a professional athlete, you're not going to train in basketball until you get put on a team and then just never practice again. And that's the same thing here. So training is really going to be the first one. The second is that it is, this is maybe actually first, is that it's in industry standard format. So again, Google goes a long way. If you literally Google like industry standard acting resume, you will find examples of it. It's 3 columns always. First column is the name of the project. Center column is the size of the role. And there are standard terms for that. For television, it's either co-star, guest star, recurring, or series regular. There are no other words that should be written there. For film, it's either lead or supporting lead, depending on what the role is. No background work on a resume. The word featured means background. If you've done background, there are benefits to that, but it should not go on your professional acting resume. The third column is either the director or the studio or whatever in that side. So yeah, standard format, and I jump right down to training. From there, of course, I want to see that you've worked. So everyone has to start somewhere. So of course, you're not going to have TV credits until you have TV credits. But what have you done? Have you done student films? Like, have you been self-submitting? Have you done local theater? Are you working for yourself? I want to make sure that you are training and pursuing your career as much as I will be once you get representation. So yeah, I definitely don't think you need to fluff your resume for no reason. When someone's starting out, I don't expect a bunch of credits. I would honestly prefer no credits or, just having one student film and nothing else to a bunch of BS. Sorry, I don't know who's in this audience, but like extra fluff of things that are just super not legitimate, or you're like really, really trying to fill that resume. Like, no, if you've done one student film, put one student film, then show me all of your training, because that's what I'm looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. I love it. So obviously in professional format, that's going to jump out at you. You're sitting at your desk, you happen to go in the office on Tuesday.
Yeah.
You open up your email and there's, an email there, you click on the resume and it's in the professional format. That is the first thing that jumps out at you.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
look at the training, and
it's not so much that it jumps out when it is professional format, but the first thing that will jump out is if it's not in standard format,
Right.
and that will honestly probably be a delete. I mean, unless it's a truly like a 6-year-old kid. Like, obviously, because I work with kids, there's a little bit of different leeway there than you'll get with adults. But yeah, I mean, I will be like, oop, that's not standard format. This actor doesn't know what they're doing.
Right. And I love that you say that. I mean, I want you to be honest with us, and that's what this is all about, right? How do we get better? How do we learn? You said, honestly, that would be a delete. And why would that be a delete?
Yeah.
For you? What's the reasons for that?
Yeah. Well, look, our rosters are full, right? My roster is full. That does not mean that I can't or won't be taking on additional clients, but I have a full roster. If I take on no additional clients, I have a full roster of people that I'm representing every day. If I'm adding to my roster, it's because I really believe in somebody. They're ready to be working professionally and be submitted professionally, and that's kind of what goes back to the why would you delete it for if the resume isn't, they need to know what they're doing, and I want my clients that I take on to have their packages ready to go for me so that I can do my job of getting that in front of casting, as opposed to hand-holding you and teaching you how to be an actor. And that again goes a little more towards like adult actors than kids. There's a little bit more leeway there with the kids, but you want me to be using my time as your rep to do what I'm supposed to do, not teaching you how to format a resume. But yeah, I mean, in order to take somebody on, a new client, they have to have something that I feel like nobody in my roster has, whatever that is. Maybe it is a unique, like I am really big on like representing underrepresented communities, right? So I love working with actors with disabilities, and I love working with people in the LGBTQ community, and I love anything that kind of sets you apart, neurodiverse. So that always interests me, is something that is a little different that we don't see as much on our screens, and we should, because anybody you can see in real life, I believe you should see on your screen. When I watch your self-tape, so I probably get 100 submissions a week. It's not low numbers. It's a lot of people that submit to me, and I look at every single submission as long as they follow submission instructions. So if I'm opening your self-tape, it needs to be just as good, if not better, than the clients that I already have. That's what's going to be catching my attention. Meaning your headshots really should already be good enough. I mean, it's hard again because, you want to have rep and then have good headshots that they like, but you also, it's hard to get a rep's attention if you don't have professional headshots. And then those self-tapes that, oh, wow. This is the first time a question popped up like that. If I'm watching a self-tape, I sit and I watch my actors' self-tapes every day. I'm watching 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 auditions a day. So I know what a good self-tape looks like. And if I open it and it's not a good quality in terms of actual self-tape setup, or you don't stand out to me, it doesn't mean you're not good. If you're submitting and not getting callback, it doesn't mean you're not a good actor, that you don't have potential, anything like that. But you have to jump out at me enough that I'm like, oh, it's worth bringing this person onto my existing roster because they are as good or better than the people that I already have. And that's hard. You have to be good and knowing the answers to those basic questions so you don't seem too green helps that. Because otherwise, I know I'm going to be spending my time helping you get there, and I would rather be spending my time doing my job.
Right. And so it's really all about the little details. I stress that when I talk to people, all throughout the industry at different ranges, but it's about the details, as much detail as you can put into something.
Yeah.
Do your homework, research.
Yeah. The research really is so big. Like, again, I say, I don't want you to be too green, but everyone has to start somewhere. And I know that. And I never will blame someone for that. But I have actors on my roster that are truly brand new, but they know this stuff because they've done the research. They've watched the things. They've joined the groups. They've had a ton of training. They've done those things that they need to do first in order to know those basics. Because it will make my life easier. And if you submit to me, like, I want to watch a tape and think, oh, that's something I would send to a casting director to pitch you, to have them give you an audition for something, right? That's what I would need to be seeing. If you're sending me headshots that are like super unprofessional, then I'm like, I could never send these to casting. There's going to be a whole nother step before I can do my job. If your resume is all over the place, same thing. So it really is how much can your package be together and ready so that I look at this and can visualize how I will use it to get you auditions and get you rolling as quickly as possible.
And something as simple as headshots, which seems to be pretty straightforward and simple, can take forever, as you know, and I know that you ask for a client, hey, we need to update your headshots. It could take months before you see those updated headshots.
And I will drop someone for that.
Right.
I will. I mean, you need to be, again, I'm working for you 40 to 80 hours a week. Like, let's be honest. So you should be working for yourself that much of the time. And I have so many clients that if I say we need new headshots, or even I feel like we don't have a headshot that covers this look, I swear by an hour will go by and I will have an email that says, okay, I'm booked with this person to shoot on Saturday. This is the wardrobe I was thinking. Is this good? And so that's what I want. If I have to be asking you over and over again and you're not responding or you're not doing it, like, there are so many people out there dying for representation that will.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I have a question here for you. What has been one of your most favorite moments working as an agent? Can you give us a story of something that happened?
I mean, because I work with young people and I do a lot of developing, despite what everything else I've just said was, this is not one specific moment, but I absolutely love finding someone that is just, I do a lot of scouting. So I go to different states and sometimes different countries and Puerto Rico with you. And, and I look for kids that I'm really excited about their talent, and they usually are brand new. They've never done anything. So finding somebody from, I'm such a California girl, the middle of nowhere is the rest of what I was going to say, the middle of America or, somewhere else, and getting them their first big auditions, getting them there, if they're, in LA auditioning commercially, getting to call them with their first booking. I mean, and it doesn't really matter how small. Like a really good example is today I got to call a client with their first booking ever, and it was dubbing. And dubbing is, for anyone that doesn't know what that is, that's truly just dubbing a foreign language thing into English. And there's a huge market for it because if you look on these streaming services, there are gajillions of things that are dubbed into English. They're union projects, they're SAG projects. The rate is terrible. It's like $148 an hour with a 2-hour minimum. But it gets you in the booth. It has you work with the director. You will hear your voice on major streaming services. So I got to call a kid with that, his first booking, and it's making him SAG eligible. And he cried, and it's like, and then obviously there's the next level of that, right? Like they've been working and they've been getting closer, and they've been having huge callbacks and producer sessions and chemistry reads, and they've tested, and they're getting so close to the big thing. And then they book the big thing. And that is just, there's no feeling like that of believing in a kid and working with them and seeing how hard they're working for it. I mean, we have so many clients that really are doing everything right, but this stuff doesn't happen in a day. And sometimes it is like, when they don't get these big things, like I get as heartbroken, I swear, as they do and their parents do. Like I want it for them just as badly. And when they book them and you get to call and say, you're a series regular, you're going to be a Disney Channel star, you're going to, especially with, I feel like something like the Disney Channel, where then they get to record their wand ID where they do the little Mickey Mouse head, and they get to, that stuff is really, it's something so special. And I love going through that with clients that I've had from the very beginning.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. So today you had their first booking, one of your clients, their first booking ever.
Yeah.
What a great moment, right? Do you put it on speaker and you're like, hey, got some news for you?
Yeah, we do it in different ways. I mean, normally when it's a client's first booking, I like to call them, especially when it's a kid. When it's other, I don't want to say little bookings, but you book one something, I'll just email a booking, but I'm always so excited, but I don't necessarily call with every booking. I get 30 bookings a week. Right. But then when it's something big, like a series regular or a lead in a movie or something like that, we do different things. We've done little Zooms. We've done things in person before. We usually have some kind of plan up our sleeve where we make it seem like it's not going to be good news. It's right. Because it's a big deal. It's that call is your life is about to change.
Right.
And we want to celebrate. And, or sometimes we'll tell the parents first, and then we'll all plan how to, so that they can record it when their kid finds out. There's just nothing like that. That is the absolute best thing about my job.
And the other great thing about it too is it's almost like self justification for all the hard work that you're doing as well, right? You believe in somebody, and you're working hours and hours knowing that, hey, something's going to hit, something's going to take off for them.
And what I know people know in theory, but we don't make $1 if you don't make $1. So we are working sometimes for years and years for free for a client. And I don't think you could be in this business if you're doing it just about the money. This is no longer an industry that's about the money. But obviously we do need to live. So it's nice in that sense as well. Right. When it's going to be something good, or, that's it's special and it's cool. And again, I so don't do it for the money. Because you see how excited I am about the $140 booking, and we get 10%. So, but it is, that we are working for free all the time. So getting that justification of I believed in this person. I believed in this kid for a reason. They had the talent there, and whether it was 6 months before their first booking, 2 years, 5 years, it does happen. But when it all pays off and other people see what you see, that's really special.
Right. And then also it's more than just the one booking. And you and I both know that, and you always have to explain this to new clients that the one booking, maybe it's $140 for the hour, but it's now extra on their resume. It's going to be something that they can add, potentially to their reel.
They're working with a director and with a producer, they're making more fans by being in the room. With kids, it's such a confidence boost, right. It is not about the booking. Nothing is about the booking. It's about the win is the audition and making fans all the time. But especially with VO, because you can kind of feel like you're just, you're just recording these auditions by yourself in a closet and sending them off into a void. You're like, are people even hearing this? Most VO projects, there aren't even callbacks for. Like, they just call and book one person. I don't even necessarily know if my client is second choice every time. Like, it's not as on camera. You get a lot more feedback along the way. And especially for kids, like, they can just feel, but for adults too, it's easy to feel like you're just, are people even hearing this? What are we, So then when you actually get to be in the booth or be on the set, that's a boost of like, oh, this is adrenaline. Like, this is good. These people saw me, loved it, wanted to work with me. They're working with me now. I now am going to go to set the next time knowing what base camp means and what crafty is. You go into a booth and you know what, like, you know what to do when they say certain things. Like, you just get a new confidence in that.
Right.
And that is great.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we're running out of time here, and I just wanted to obviously thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday evening from Los Angeles. But one quick tip that you can give to those who are watching, or one piece of encouragement that you can give to somebody who's maybe just starting out, wanting to break into this industry, what would you say to them today?
Focus on your passion. Always fall back on doing what you love. I have said this before, and I still think it's the most important piece of advice. This is not an easy business. It's just not, no matter what side of it you're on. And it's really an easy business to get burned out during. You're doing so much auditioning and so much training, and maybe you're booking a lot, maybe you're not booking at all, but either way, it's easy to get burnt out from it. So the most important thing is that you're doing what you love. And if you're not loving it, then you shouldn't be doing it, at least not in the way you're doing it, right? Like, you might be somebody who's done plays your whole life and you absolutely love being on stage, and you're going to start pursuing this. And then once you start pursuing, you find out you really hate auditioning. You hate, like, breaking down a script and recording. You hate self-tapes. We know a lot of people that left this business after COVID because they truly hate self-taping. And that's now what this business is. And that's okay. So you start doing that and you're finding yourself discouraged because you just don't want to be doing that. Doesn't mean you're not an actor or you don't love to act. Go back to doing theater. Or if it's the self-taping, the auditioning that you hate, make your own stuff, create your own stuff. If you love to write, like, you just want to act, like, make your own scripts and act in them. I think it's just always knowing your mental health is the most important thing. If you're not enjoying it, that you're not going to book if you're not enjoying it, first of all, but you're also, this is your life that you're living. So fall back on your passion. If you need to take a break from auditioning, like, just communicate that to your reps. Say, like, I need a month and I want to just be in class. I just want to be in class for the sake of being in class and taking acting and learning to better my skill, and not for the purpose of, like, auditions. That's totally fine. Do that. Just lean back onto your passion for what you're doing. And that's how you'll get through it. This is a long game, and that's how you'll stay in it.
I love that. Well, I love talking with you. That's what I love doing.
Hey,
Thank you for your time. I appreciate you joining us again, and all of those people who are tuning in. We love that you guys are here with us as well. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have fun.
Thank you. You too.
Take some time for yourself as well.
Absolutely. I'll do my best.
It was great seeing you again. Hopefully we'll see you in the near future. Maybe I'll run into you at one of our events in the near future.
That would be great. Awesome. It was great to see you, Jeremy. And I'm wishing everyone the best of luck on this journey. Oh my God, wait, I have one more thing to say that I have to tell you.
Okay.
You'll appreciate this. I was laying in bed, falling asleep last night, watching TV, and up popped the client I signed in Puerto Rico at your showcase that has his first commercial on the air. And it's the first time I've seen his commercial, and he's one of your kids.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. So you're just sitting there watching TV.
I was literally watching TV before bed, like, just had it on, and I like popped out of bed and paused it and rewound it. Yep.
I've had those moments, and where you're not even random places, like at a restaurant, and the TV's
and it's on the TV. Yeah.
And there they are going.
First time I've ever seen them on TV. So
Awesome.
Okay.
Love
All right.
it.
Now I'm leaving. Bye.
Thanks for sharing.
Of course.